Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Motivational speaker, coach, God lover, and goal crusher Joe Rivera brings you inspiring leaders, incredible stories, and valuable lessons on how you can change, grow, and reforge your life. Now, here's your host, Joe Rivera.
What up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Reforge Your Life with Joe Rivera show. I'm your host, Joe Rivera. Hope everybody's having a productive and profitable week. And if you're in that cold area, man, I hope you're staying warm. And because it's a winter day today, and today, man, I feel blessed to bring somebody to the show who I consider a friend. He's a father, a friend, entrepreneur. He's a mortgage broker specialist, and now he's a recovery coach, and he's helping people who are in recovery to be able to unlock their fullest potential and live the dream life that they wanted before being in active use out there. And man, it's a pleasure to bring my boy Len Murphy. Len, man, thanks for coming through, bro. Always appreciate when we can work together and do some work, man.
Oh, man, my pleasure, Joe. Anytime, man. I'm blessed also to be with you here today, man. Thanks for having me. Just ready to get going and talk and, serve people.
Yeah, man, that's what it's all about, bro. It's about being a service and giving it back. We've been given a gift.
Exactly.
We'll get more into that a little bit. I don't want to spoil your story because nobody could tell your story better than you can, man. So I want to kick things off to the listeners by you sharing your story, and then we'll kind of go from there, man.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm sorry. I'm just fixing my camera a little bit. But, yeah, my story, I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. My drinking started early as a teenager, but really got bad, during college, my college time away. And I drank, when I first started drinking, didn't know much about alcohol, but the fact that my father was an alcoholic, so I saw him drink. But even as a young age, I really didn't understand it and understand that it was a disease and an addiction, drinking. So I saw my father battle with it, as a teenager growing up, I started drinking here and there, but it really started affecting me, once I got to college. And when I got into college, I started to drink basically just to, be able to talk to people, to, defeat my shyness, I guess you could say. So I wasn't shy anymore. And that just drinking gave me a reason to speak to people, or gave me a way to speak to people, come out of my shell and, just, hang out with everybody. Then it started to take effect, once I graduated, got into the corporate world, the drinking just started getting worse. Went through a divorce, got back with my wife, separated again, two times. And then, numerous DUIs, stints in rehab. And I think what really, I'm just summarizing my story now, but what really, was I guess they say bottom for me. What really opened my eyes was when my aunt died of this disease, and that was the day. That next day when she passed away, I went right to rehab, and that's when I went on my path to recovery.
Yeah, man, we got a few things in common there, man. I mean, I'm also in recovery, so I know that the challenges that come with, getting sober, and especially in the beginning. And I want to know, I'm curious, like, what was some of the limited beliefs and fears that you had to move through in order to get sober? Because I remember, man, the challenge of waking up and trying to live life without doing drugs, that alone was something challenging to me. So I'm curious, through your journey, what was a limited belief that you had to go through, or fear that you had to crack and overcome?
Well, that's a great question. And so many limiting beliefs. One, we as men, especially men of color, it's like, we just think we it's so not so easy to admit to ourselves, not to others, but to even ourselves that we have a problem, right? I grew up in a household where, you don't whine, you don't cry, you don't complain, something's
Yeah.
wrong, just deal with it. And, you know, to a certain extent, of course you overcome things. But when it comes to something like an addiction, it's not as easy as just saying get over it. But I didn't know that. So when I started having this issue, when I started to realize I had a problem with alcohol, I didn't seek help. And I thought that I had to get over this myself because no one could help me.
Mm.
So that kept me from getting help, asking out, reaching out. And I mean, one thing that stopped me from getting better at first was that, I thought I had to do it by myself. There was no one out there who was going to help me, or I also thought if I told anybody, especially my wife, that she would think of me as a weak man, or how could I raise my children if I'm over here, you know, admitting that I have an addiction and getting help for it. So that's what really stopped me from, in the beginning, especially in early sobrieties or early, addiction, excuse me, from getting the help I needed because, I felt like, hey, you didn't even want to admit, I didn't even want to admit that I had a problem.
Yeah, that asking for help. Yes, men really do struggle with that, and you hit it on the button with growing up, and not being able to cry, or not being able to kind of really ask for help. It was something that
Right.
growing up, it wasn't cool to ask for help, right? It made, it was supposedly looked at as we're weak if we ask for help.
Right.
So
Exactly.
what did you do to overcome that? What was the turning point? I know you spoke a little bit about your aunt. I'd like to dive into what was it that really said, you know what? Fuck, man, enough is enough. I gotta get help. I gotta go against everything that I was brought up, how it makes me look weak if I ask for help. So how did you become strong enough to ask for help?
So I went through stages in my sobriety. So again, there's a point up in the beginning. I couldn't even admit that I had a problem. But as things started to happen to me, right? Like DUI. I got a DUI. I got my first DUI. My wife was 8.5 months pregnant with our first daughter. So my wife had to actually come to the courthouse, see me in handcuffs with a belly out to here. She's 8.5 months pregnant, and I'm getting the DUI. Um, but of course, it's me still not admitting I had a problem. I continued to drink, and things which just made my life more difficult and unmanageable. So as things started to happen, and I guess it was a buildup of so many things happening where I was like, okay, I finally admitted that I needed help. And when I went to get help, I went to recovery meetings, 12-step programs, AA. Still, there wasn't a commitment there yet. I was still thinking I got it, or went to a few meetings and then I was okay, or sober for a couple of months, then I think I'm okay, and then I just kept continuing to relapse. I was what you call a chronic relapser. I don't want to admit how many times I relapsed. I'd rather not, but that was just part of my process, my recovery process, and it got to the point where it was just I had no control over my life at all. Alcohol just controlled me. Each and every day I woke up and that's all I wanted to do was drink. From the time I woke up to the time I lay my head down at night, I just wanted to be drunk and drink all day. And I think when my aunt passed away, I was just like, this is it. I can't live like this anymore. I just watched her die and right in front of me because of this disease, her addiction with alcohol. And I was like, it's time to that hurt and that pain, and just looking back at what the destruction behind me, that path I left, I was like, not being a good father. I've already lost my wife. We divorced. She left me twice. Not being a good son, not being a good brother, not being a good friend. So after all that hurt and pain, it was just like, enough was enough. And I was tired of being hurt and I had to change.
Yeah, that's the constant theme that you hear with people who overcome substance abuse. It was the sick and tired of being sick and tired, and just wanting to make a
Exactly.
change. And it sounds
Yeah.
like, first off, man, I mean, shit, congratulations, bro, because you mentioned you had relapse part of your story. Relapse is part of a lot of people in recovery story, but there's people who end up relapsing and they don't come back. And the fact that you did come
Right.
back shows strength in your character. So I just want to take that time out to congratulate you on that, because I know that that's not an easy thing to do, to go back out and then come back to being sober again, man. So that's a
Sure.
blessing in itself,
Thank
you
you.
know.
Thank you.
But when you think of the values that guided you towards being able to persevere and overcome those relapses, overcome, the voices in your head telling you to go back to getting high, go back to drinking, because it's so much easier to listen to those voices, and to listen to
Right.
the people that, also the people that you hung out with, that you're used to hanging out with, and those people telling you, yo, come back, hang out. So what values did you hold on to be able to persevere and overcome those struggles, and those relapses and those obstacles that were in the road?
Oh man, such a great question. Such a great question. Yeah, my faith in God, number one. That's my top value is my faith and my relationship with God. And even though I know I wasn't living to my full potential or living the way the Lord put me on this earth to be, I still my faith was still there. I still you still my my top value is my relationship with God. And I finally got to a point where like God God is always there for me. He's my savior. He saved me from the depths of alcoholism. But I knew, and also when I came to the point where I was turning around my life and wanted to change, me having that faith in God, I knew that God wasn't going to change anything in my life until I committed to change. Like good wasn't going to, abundance wasn't going to come to me until I changed, because I wasn't ready to accept abundance because I was just ruining my life, destroying my health, drinking all day, every day. And I knew until I found a way to remove those shackles of addiction that, I wasn't going to live the full, my full potential of life that I was put on this earth to live. And I had the faith that I knew God would make my life better on the other side of this addiction. And I knew my life would get better once I stopped drinking. And so that was what really I had to focus on. When you say focus on values, I focused on that value, number one. And number two, my children, my daughters, my two daughters. I was like, I can't be the father they need or the father I want to be to them if I'm going down this path. You know what I mean? So again, I value my relationship with God, number one. I value my relationship with my daughters is number two. And those two, my top values, always been, is what, when I start to focus on that again, is what's really helped me get through and stay strong and stay on this path I'm on now today.
So what I'm hearing you say is your spirituality kept you moving forward. That was one of the core values, and the other one would
Oh,
be family, your daughters, and
right, right,
fatherhood, and not being able to, realizing that, shit, man, I can't help my daughters if I don't help myself. And,
exactly,
and, and,
exactly,
and learning to put that self-care first, because when you're out in active use, out there drugging and drinking, man, there ain't no real self-care involved. There's selfishness involved, but ain't no self-care involved. It's not really about taking care of
not at
yourself,
all.
and it's just where you're going to get that next fix from. And you
Right,
spoke about, spirituality being something that you held on to, one of those core values. So how did you start building your relationship with God? Because, you know, I'm. It sounds like somewhere along the line you kind of lost that relationship, you lost that faith, and then you found a way to latch back onto it and be able to lean into that. Am I saying that right? And what was your way of building that relationship?
Oh no, you're absolutely right. I mean, when I was out there drinking and running around and just doing that all day, every day, my God wasn't first. God was not first. You know, what I wanted was, you know, the alcohol. I wanted the bottle, and that was replacing God in my life. First thing, you know, that was the first thing I wanted, the only thing I wanted, and I wasn't putting God in the place in my life where He needed to be. And I lost faith. You know, I lost touch with God, and I was just out there living by my will, you know, not by His. And it was to the point where I had to understand that my life would not get better if I didn't live by His will and His will only. You know, it couldn't be on my terms. It had to be on His terms, God's terms. And I lost touch. And then when I prayed, even Joe, even through the times when I wasn't listening or not, you know, not staying on path, I always prayed, you know. And my actions, sometimes I would pray and, you know, my actions wouldn't match my prayers, or I would go out and do something totally against what I just prayed for. But I continued to pray, and I continued to pray. And again, God is, you know, His love is unconditional. His love is unfailing. And I finally heard Him say that, you know, I'm going to change your life, but you have to change first. You have to meet me halfway. You cannot continue to drink all day, every day, and think that good is going to come. You know, I always wanted God, and I learned as a young child, always wanted God to trust me with His abundance. And me behaving the way I was, there's no way He could trust me with abundance. You know, I was out there just drinking and running around, not caring about anybody, robbing, stealing, lying, cheating, you know. And when I heard that voice from God, like you said, there's that loud voice, which is the enemy telling you, "Oh, just continue to drink, continue to drink." Then there's that quiet voice, that peaceful voice. It's the voice of the Lord saying, "Put that drink down." And that's where we battle sometimes too. We listen to that louder voice, right? When we should be listening to that voice of truth, a voice that leads us down the path of salvation and, you know, living the right way. And so I reconnected as I started to listen. My prayers, as I continued to pray, finally it clicked, and I started to listen to God. And I was like, you know, I have to change. And then after change, my faith, the more days I spent in sobriety and recovery, the stronger my faith became, you know. And it's stronger now today than it ever was, and it's just getting stronger and stronger because I truly believe, you know, like I say, my faith in God is strong, and I believe in Him. His promises, He keeps His promises. So, you know, that's where I'm at today.
I hope the listeners out there are listening to the jewels that are being dropped when it comes to connecting with that higher source. You know, whether you call it God, the universe, the infinite intelligence, whatever you believe. But my man just said that he learned to listen, to remove the loud voice, because that's the easy voice. The loud voice, you know, the enemy's sitting there trying to tell you to do something, trying to tell you you're not good enough, trying to self-sabotage, trying to make you have worry, have doubt. But being able to sit there and really listen to that higher source and learning how to connect on that level, that's so important when it comes to really connecting with your higher source and being able to listen to what God is telling you. And you mentioned that you heard the voice tell you that change. You got to change yourself. Because guess what? You could change all these things around you, but if you ain't making the change from within, there's no real change occurring. So I'm curious, when you peeled that onion back and started taking stock of who you were to make that change after hearing that voice tell you to change, because that's where the work is, bro. The work is not putting down the drugs and alcohol. The work is changing
Right,
yourself,
right.
changing your attitude and behaviors. What did you have to notice about yourself that needed to get changed? What was like that big aha moment of like, shit, this is what's got to change. I got to start with this. Walk me through what that looked like.
Wow. So, and one thing, and like I said, my aunt passed away. So I was like, that's it. So I jumped on the plane the next morning to go to my last stint in rehab. So I went to Florida. First thing I had to do was, again, I talked about it earlier, stop living by my will. So I said a prayer, and I remember this clearly, Joe, like it was yesterday. I said, God, I'm getting on this plane. Please just show me what I need to do. So I gave my will up. I gave it to God, and I was like, show me what I need to do. I am open to whatever it is I need to do. I no longer want to live by my rules or my will. And I submitted to living to God's will. And I was just open. So everything I saw myself changing as days went on. So everything I knew I would have said no to, or, brush away, or be like, no, I got it. I don't need that. I was open to it. And I started to see the change in my life and in rehab, like even I went through trauma therapy. If you would have told me years back you had trauma and go see a trauma therapist, I'd have been like, I'm not doing that. And again, this came up in therapy. It came up when I was in rehab, and I was at first like, same thing. At first, my first reaction was trauma therapy. That sounds crazy. And then I went and asked other people in rehab about this, and they told me the same thing. Yo, that's crazy. Don't do it. But then I called myself. I was like, God said to me, you asked me, you told me you were going to be open to what I'm showing you. Now I'm showing you the path. Now, if you choose to walk that path, you will receive my promises, my abundance, right? So I had to catch myself. So I was like, okay, I was open. Again, it was the craziest thing because I would never been open to that, Joe, before. I've been to rehab many times, detox, inpatient, outpatient. Never would have even touched the trauma therapist or talked to a trauma therapist. So I opened myself and I went through trauma therapy, and that's one of the main things that got me sober was dealing with my trauma. So again, asking the Lord to show me what to do, what I need to do. And he was showing me, and not only asking him to show me, but when he shows me, go walk through that door that he's opening, And when I did that, and I continued all these things that he was showing me, and I did them, and I got sober, and I stayed sober, So that changed my life. Just opening to living by God's will and not my own rules, because I know I cannot do it alone. I love God, I trust God, I depend on God. You know what I mean? So I need him in my life, and I need him to show me the way, and I need to not only hear what he's saying, but listen and do.
Yeah.
And take the action.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's so powerful to realize that you had to be open-minded towards facing those traumas that you went through in your life, and to be able to overcome some of those traumas. What was one trauma that you had to overcome that you think kind of was like the one trauma that made you, that you were fighting all those years, that you didn't want to face, that it was the ugliest trauma you felt you had, that you wanted to overcome, that you had to overcome in order to really make that change from within, and really open yourself up?
Yeah, I think the main trauma, and which this was I realized, and again, trauma, sometimes we don't know we have it until we talk about it and it comes out. I didn't realize, and like I told you in the beginning, my father was an alcoholic. And alcoholism rampant through my family. My aunt passed away. My father passed away this disease as well. And he passed away the day before my 18th birthday. But I didn't realize that growing up, all that stuff I saw, or the way we lived, a lot of it was off of his alcoholism. We lived in the projects. there was no way out. We weren't moving anywhere, and like it wasn't even like we were trying to get out of there. You know what I mean? Where I saw my friends live in different places, different environments. I was in the projects in Brooklyn, New York. Um, you know, we that was traumatic living that way, where it was dangerous, it was dirty. No one cared about where they lived, so I had to watch. Couldn't walk at. We had to walk down certain blocks to get to my building, or to get through the bad guys or the gang members or whatever. And as I started to get older, I saw my father. I saw this disease take over his life. Like he was somebody I looked up to when I was young, and clean cut, ambition. And then I slowly saw the alcoholism take over, where he wasn't clean and sharp anymore, where he wasn't ambitious, where it was just tough on him. And I blamed him, and I was angry about that, and I didn't realize it. And there was times he didn't go take me to different. I had basketball practice. He didn't take me. Didn't take me to games. And now I realize that he wasn't taking me because he was sitting down drinking at home, or he was rather go out, hang out with his friends and drink. And I didn't realize that growing up, but I resented him big time, and I had to learn to forgive him, like because Joe, I actually became my father. I was that person where I had it all together, then alcoholism slowly took everything away. You know what I mean? Where I was just like him, not focusing on my health, self-care, not focusing on raising my children, not focusing on being a good husband, I was just a good drunk, just a good alcoholic. That's all I was. So I became him, and I resented him for that. And, I had to forgive him because you know what? He did the best he could. You know what I mean? And I had to understand that. Like, he was an alcoholic, and he did the best he could as an alcoholic to raise me and my sister. And that going through that process, that freed me, and I was like, wow, that made me now focus on me and focusing on the person I want to become, the man I want to become. So, and I forgave him. Like, a lot of crying, a lot of soul searching, went through that, but I didn't realize how angry I was at him. You always say, oh, I love my father, but I was pissed off, man. And to learn to go through that, if I had to come out, because again, that wasn't on the surface. I didn't know that. And we a lot of things, we have trauma early in life most of the time, that now I understood the why behind my drinking too. And that, you can't change a behavior unless you understand why you behave in a certain way. And I didn't get that. But when I went through the trauma, now I understood why. You know what I mean? So, and that changed my life forever. That changed my life forever.
I mean, for the listeners out there, for the people who struggle with forgiveness, and man, it's such a powerful tool for us, man, when we learn how to forgive and realize that forgiving isn't just for the person that you're forgiving. It's not just to forgive them. They're an important piece to that puzzle, obviously, but forgiveness is also for the person doing the forgiving, because something gets lifted inside when you're able to forgive, and you witness that, right? You experience that lift off your shoulders from being able to forgive. It helped you get over that trauma that you went through. So yeah, you're forgiving your father, but man, you're also forgiving yourself for holding in those feelings all those years. And that lift that comes off from that forgiveness, man, is so important. It's so powerful. Man, so
definitely.
What is, tell the listeners right now, about what it is you're doing out there. I know you kind of gave this gift that you've been given. You're giving it back through your work and being a recovery coach. Tell me a little bit about what you have going on there with that recovery program after you were able to overcome all the trauma and now put it into work.
Yeah, so when I got sober, left rehab, for the last time, again, now I said, okay, what's next? I've been here before, but I knew I wanted to be different. I've been through rehab. Of course, you're sober in rehab, but I knew like this was something was different this time. Like this time, I told God I was open to whatever He has for me. I was open. I did different things. I dealt with my trauma. Now I was ready to become. Now I was ready to stay sober, but I was like, now I want to take my recovery to the next level. Like, okay, what are my dreams and goals that I had? My ambition that I had before alcohol started to take over. Like I wanted to get that back, or just go with it. Like if whatever I was missing before, I wanted to get on that track. I just didn't want to stay sober. I wanted to thrive in my recovery. So now it's time to focus on my personal development, like, and find my purpose. Like now I was like, God gave me this gift because Joe, I thought I was close to dying. I was this on that right before I went to rehab. My aunt had passed away. I had nothing to live for. I was on a binge during that time. She was sick, but God, like I said, God's my savior. He saved me, and I was like, He gave me this gift. I have to do something with it. So I started to work on myself. Focus on my spirituality, my physical, my body, my health, my emotions. Went to therapy, just stayed on track with the therapy, and financially got things together financially. Just started to rebuild my life, and then I said, okay, now it's time to find my purpose. Because again, we have to do these things so we just don't stay idle. I mean, sometimes we get sober and we're like, okay, wow, everything's great, but then we're scared to go outside and walk by a certain store because that's going to trigger us to drink, or we just hide away from our triggers and not attack them or not deal with them. So I was like, I want to live differently. I want to, like I said, thrive in recovery. So I was like, okay, I got to find my purpose now. And sometimes in your pain you find purpose. And I was like, I'm always big on whatever God gives me. Now I'm a lend. I don't have to borrow anymore. So He gave me, and sometimes we think of it as money. I lend, I don't borrow. But I was like, no, I'm gonna lend, because I got to the point where I had no desire to drink, which I never had in my life. And I was like, that's all God. And I was like, now I'm gonna lend. I'm gonna give this away. I borrowed it. Somebody borrowed it and helped me. Now I'm gonna give it away. So I was like, I just had to serve. So I started small, running recovery meetings online. During COVID, I was just running recovery meetings, and during that time, I was like, I want to reach more people. I want to do more, and spoke with some people in the business, some friends, and I said, okay, I'm gonna become a certified life coach, and just went to do training, got certified, and just focus on recovery coaching. And I just wanted to do that and help people, like I said, in early sobriety, just work on, empower them to take back their life, find their purpose, and again, thrive in recovery. And that's what I want to help people do. Once you're committed to your sobriety, let's take it to the next step and just help guide people through, get their lives back on track and take control back of their life so they don't relapse. That's where we miss it. We get sober and then we're not doing anything to better ourselves. So as soon as something happens, we're going back to the bottle, back to the drug, back to whatever addiction we have. So that was what I really wanted to do, and that's what I'm doing now. It's a blessing that I'm able to do so.
Tell us how you're doing that. I mean, what do you have a coaching program? You're speaking. What is it you have going on that you're? How are you helping people go through this change in their life and being able to overcome the obstacles that come with sobriety?
Yeah, so I'm doing one-on-one coaching. I do that. Also doing group coaching. I have a program out now. It's for men. So I know we'll get to you soon, women, but we do have a program for men.
The women need love too, huh?
They need love too. We're working on one's in the works. But I have a program for men in early recovery because I was a man and I went through it. So just helping men get back on track. With their spouses, with their children, career, finances, health, things like that. And also, I do some keynote and motivational speaking, and just getting the word out about, once you commit, there's more to do when you're in your recovery, and just helping people get to where they want to get in life in recovery.
Absolutely. And tell the listeners, tell us where we could follow, where we could find you, your social media, all that other good stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely visit the website. It's www.empoweredthroughsobriety.com. You'll see all my services there. Get some tips and things like that. Also, you can follow me on all social platforms at Empowered Through Sobriety. And again, different tips, different tools you could use, things like that. And, both on social media or on my website, you can always sign up for free coaching call, free consultation. And if you want to take your recovery to the next level and get your life back on track, I'm here to help, always here to help. So you could always set up for free, like I said, free consultation call, free discovery call. And, like I said, I'm here to help.
And help is what he does, man. If you're in early recovery and you're trying to get over those stumbling blocks, definitely holler at my boy Lenny, man. He'll guide you the right direction. Yes. Len, it's always been a pleasure to work with you, man. But before I let you go, and we let the listeners go, I got a couple of questions that I ask all my guests. First is, sure. What does the word, what does purpose mean to you?
Oh, good one. Purpose is your calling. What you're called to do. And purpose, I feel, it's about not you, but the people you're impacting. And when you're living in purpose and working in purpose, sometimes you're impacting people that you're never going to meet. So it's about your calling. What are you called to do, and in what capacity are you called to serve? Because again, purpose is all about serving others.
Yeah, serving others, indeed, man.
So it's about your calling. What you're putting on earth to do.
When you're servicing others, you find your purpose within that serving that you're doing. Big believer in that.
Exactly.
And the last one is, we are on Reforge Your Life podcast, right? So what does the word reforge mean to you?
So just moving forward with a new life, changing your life. Like, we get this second chance in recovery, and it's time to move forward, but as a new you, like remodeling your life, I guess, changing from that person you were to that other side, becoming that new, better you, the person you want to be, that you dream to be, the person I feel like God put us on this earth to be, and living our full potential.
Love it. Well, Len, man, it's always great working with you, whether we're doing something on live, or whether we're doing something at an event, or whatever it is, man. I always appreciate crossing energy with you and being able to give it back, man. And thanks for being here and coming through on the episode. And everybody out there, man, enjoy the rest of your week. Stay productive, stay profitable, and stay blessed. Till next time, y'all.
Yes, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
You've been listening to Reforge Your Life with your host, Joe Rivera. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Joe Rivera and how he can help you or your organization reforge your life and regain your place at the top, head on over to withjoerivera.com and follow Joe on all social platforms. The Reforge Your Life podcast was produced by Thrive Loud Productions. Thanks for listening.